All of you know that several thousand years ago, the world got into such a terrible state that it was impossible to talk or preach people out of their wickedness. It's possible to get to that state that no matter what you do to others, they just won't change their way at all. In His mercy for the world and for human beings, the Lord God allowed the world to be flooded. Flooded, and not like you might see in modern documentaries, little lakes overflowing and whatever, but as it says in the Gospels, the Bible, a flood that was higher than any mountains. We don't know how high the mountains were then. However high they were, the flood that came was not only the waters that were on the earth as such, that we see like today in oceans and rivers and whatever, but the water in the covering that covered the whole world in those days and prevented direct sun to shine through and burn up the world. That's why people lived long times. Hundreds of years was quite a common age for people to live. They were not exposed to the sort of things that we get exposed to today. No one ever saw rain because it says this mist came up from the earth and watered the plants. But not only that, there was a massive, massive amount of water under the surface of the earth. The Lord allowed all those things to break loose and completely flood the earth. 40 days and 40 nights of rain and of the releasing of all the other waters of which we don't even know about today because things have changed. Of course, you all know that one family, Noah and his family, were saved through the building of an ark which the Lord commanded them to do, and the taking on of a male and a female of the heritage species of the animals that needed to be saved. When I say heritage species, I mean those species from which all the other types will come. So for example, if you have antelope, we have hundreds of types of antelopes, but genetically, if you look back, there is a heritage species of antelopes. And the same with everything, any other animal. I'm not going to tell you about the science of accommodating all those things, because it's readily available and many people have commented on it, and it's certainly not a difficult thing to fit into the type of vessel that Noah and his family built over 100 years in order to save themselves. The Lord, after this finished, set a sign in the heavens, the rainbow, which nobody had ever seen before because it never rained, as an indication that he would never again destroy the world that way. Yet we know that the world is destined for destruction because, again, mankind in many places have reached a stage where it is not able to come back to any form of righteousness. It's not able. And both in the Gospels and the writings of the Holy Fathers, we know that that is going to be by fire. And a new heaven and a new earth will be established. This fire today, this burning, is going out throughout the world as a new sort of initiative to destroy, not only in secret but openly through governments and whatever, the gender difference that the Lord has given to us in order to populate the kingdom of heaven with Christophores, people, children who bear Christ. Christ bearing children. What a trick the demons have brought upon mankind, all for the reason of this burning. All of you adults know the burning that I am talking about, because no one is born without it. Used rightfully, that burning does indeed allow human beings to bring forth Christophores, but used unrighteously, it leads person to damnation. The burning is such that almost nobody who comes into the world and lives through adulthood, whatever, is able to have that removed from their system. One of our spiritual fathers, to whom we went for 10 years to church, even in his 80s, sat down one day and said, you know, I come here and I do all the services every day, liturgy. I have to be so careful, because when I see a woman, if I'm not careful, all sorts of things happen within my soul. And that was from a righteous 80-plus-year-old man. In the lives of the saints, we sometimes read about how these holy men and women struggle against this type of burning. And some think that they have been freed from it. There was a good incident of, quite a holy person who thought that he had reached such a state. And during a confessional period with his spiritual father, he mentioned this. He said that the Lord God has been merciful to me and has removed that burning from my body. The spiritual father looked at him and said, "Oh, really? You know that across the river is our women layman's monastery. Why don't you go there, stand at the gate, undress yourself nakedly, and then knock on the door. And he said, are you out of your mind? What are you asking me to do? It's ridiculous. It's horrible. It's simple. It's a stupid thing. So there you go. The burning has not been removed from you. All that's happened is it's been brought under some sort of control. But at any moment that spark can light up and bring you into all sorts of problems. You know, most of the stories that we read from the Holy Father do involve monks. Well, because they are the ones that write these things and experience it on a much higher level than we do. Two of them once were asked to go to the village to buy produce, and somewhere in the village, enticed into a house of sin, fell. Nevertheless, taking up their produce on the way back to the monastery, one of them said, I can take it anymore, and leaving, dropped everything and ran away. The other one said, Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, the sinner. The Lord will forgive me. And indeed he did. And he went back and he grew in stature spiritually. But as I want to say to you, you all know that this burning is taking over the world now in many, many different forms, and you'll see it even in worse forms. It's one thing to expose it to adults, but it is now dragging children and youth into it as well, both in schools and openly in the streets and other places. Giving them the wrong understanding about this, and therefore making it very much harder, if not impossible, for them to be able to use those gifts that God has given us properly. How do we escape such a thing in our lives, because it blares at us wherever we go? Innocently, you're driving in your car with your children, and there it is. All the advertising and whatever, destined to evoke your burning. Your burning. Of course, as adults, we can try to ignore it, don't look at those things and don't think about them and pray. But, you know, the children, it's a very difficult thing for them to do that. I don't know if any of you have seen a grade 7 science book. If you care to stay behind a little bit, I'll show you some pictures out of a grade 7 science book on what sort of things they are presenting to kids who 50% of them don't even know what you're talking about. They don't know what you're talking about. And therefore, this burning is going to result in the burning of the whole world. Because that's the only way that the Lord can retrieve again sanctity in this world. Those who follow the righteous way. And believe me, you won't get rid of that burning, but you can certainly bring it under control the ones that are saved. Make that understandable to others. Make that understandable to your friends. And watch both yourselves and the children about those sorts of things which are literally shoved down our throats and legislated now. They will be legislated. That burning is good, no matter how it's done. No matter how it's done. And there will be the world of Sodom and Gomorrah over the whole world. We're nearly there. God help us in this sort of existence that we are coming to. One other thing. The Names Day of our Metropolitan is approaching. Those of you who can, please send him an email or something congratulating him on this, because he made such a fantastic statement about marriage, which I will later tell you about. And so far he's been the only metropolitan that I've heard that has knocked the thing on the head and given us the truth, the Orthodox truth about what it should be. God bless you, protect you. Let us say with our whole soul, with our whole